Everyone, thank you for joining today's virtual conference and thank you for logging in before time. We appreciate your timeliness. My name is Frazier Martins and I'm your host for today. Dun & Bradstreet India, in association with Google Cloud and InfraBeat, is glad to present this episode of Digital Transformation Champions on the pertinent theme, Accelerate Your Transition to a Smart Enterprise. In today's session, we will discuss about the digital transformation journey of Enpro Industries and how they migrated their core ERP on Google Cloud. We encourage you to ask more questions in this session. We request you to please type your queries in the questions section on your screen. These will be taken up in the Q&A session later. A couple of tips. We want to know more about you, so please mention your name and company name when you post your question. You can also mention the person whom you are directing the question to. So let's take a quick look at the flow of today's session, and for that, please refer to the agenda displayed on your screens right now. Clearly a promising agenda with an eminent lineup of speakers. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and thank everyone for being part of this virtual session today. We have with us today Mr. Anuj Karkare, Mr. Venugopal Desai, Mr. Nikhil Kanzore, and Mr. Samir Shepal. It is my pleasure to now introduce our first speaker for the day. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Samir Shepal, Director and Head Sales and Marketing for InfraBeat Technologies Private Limited. Welcome, Mr. Shepal. Over to you.
Hey, thanks, Fraser. Good morning, everyone. And this is Samir here. And on behalf of Dun & Bradstreet, Google India, and InfraBeat, I welcome you all. So, first of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you being here today to listen to the story of digital transformation champion, that is Enpro Industries. Enpro Industries is based out of Pune, and they are world leader in design and manufacture of mechanical fluid systems, process equipment, and engineering services. So our journey started around 10 months back when we got in touch with Enpro Industries and we got to know about their digital transformation plan. Their business growth and need of the robust and agile IT application system that made them like, what are the next things we should do to start our digital transformation journey. So for any digital transformation journey, we need a strong, robust business application, the first part, and second part is a strong IT infrastructure. So we began our engagement with Enpro Industry around 8 months back, and we started building their digital transformation foundation by doing a greenfield implementation of S4HANA, SAP S4HANA on Google Cloud platform. So our joint efforts from Enpro and InfraBeat paid off around after 8 months, and in the first week of April, CMD of Enpro Industries, they declared successful go live of S4HANA on Google Cloud. So today we are not here to celebrate the conclusion of a particular initiative, but it is just the beginning. So without taking much of a time, I would like to take a pause here and let's hear the fantastic story of digital transformation from the Executive Director of Enpro Industries, Mr. Anuj Karkare. Thank you and take care. Over to you, Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Shepal. We now come to the most exciting part of the session, where we will hear about the digital transformation of Enpro. And for that, I'm happy to introduce to you Mr. Anuj Karkare, Executive Director Strategy for Enpro Industries Private Limited. Anuj is the second generation in his family business, Enpro Industries Private Limited, an engineering and manufacturing company based in Pune, which specializes in the design and manufacture of specialized mechanical fluid systems and high-quality pressure vessels and heat exchangers. He completed his dual degree as an energy engineer from IIT Bombay in 2014. Anuj completed a master's in renewable energy technologies from École Polytechnique, France in 2015 and an MBA from INSEAD, France in 2020. An avid trekker since childhood, Anuj has completed several treks and expeditions in the Himalayas and has summited notable mountains like Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount Elbrus, Mont Blanc, and Mount Stockholm. He loves running and completed the Ironman triathlon in New Zealand in 2018. Anuj is also passionate about sustainability and started cycle to work incentives at Enpro. Today, 80% of Enpro's energy requirement is met by clean solar energy, and it aims to become carbon negative in the coming years. Welcome, Mr. Karkare. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Fraser. Thanks a lot for the introduction, and thank you for having me here. Thanks to the Google Cloud team and the InfraBeat team for organizing this, and of course DNB for organizing this program and having me here.
Lovely. I would like to now introduce our host for the fireside chat session, Mr. Venugopal Desai, Head of Partner Marketing APAC for Google Cloud. Welcome, Venu, and over to you. Have a good one.
Thank you, Frazier. And once again, a very warm welcome to you, Anuj. Thank you for taking out time and joining us on this fireside chat session. It's a great privilege to announce the successful go-live of Enpro Industries for transforming their SAP landscape on Google Cloud, as Samir mentioned. And for all our delegates who are joining us today, in the next 30 minutes, you will witness this amazing transformation story as we hear it from Anuj. So let's get started. Anuj, Enpro Industries has carved for a niche for itself in the realm of industrial technology. Can you please walk us through on the origin and the journey of what makes Enpro what it is today?
Right. So as Samir has mentioned, I'm the second generation at Enpro. So Enpro was founded by my parents, Alka and Shri Krishna Karkare, about 32 years ago. So back in 1988, I wasn't even born back then. My father literally started Enpro from the garage of our house. So to say it was a startup back in those days when startups weren't the cool thing, but in fact, they were frowned upon. Both my parents are technocrats, also graduates from IIT Bombay. My father, he left his job from Thermax. He worked there for a few years. My mother left her job from Praj, and they both started the business together. So how did Enpro exactly start? As I mentioned, from a garage. My father started marketing some products like pumps, etc., for the Pune region. And that's how Enpro started their journey. Soon we realized that along with the pumps, some of our customers required some packaging systems around these pumps. So that's how our business kind of evolved into different products. And we found a niche which basically we needed to supply some packaging systems, some piping systems to boiler manufacturers, etc. So we carved out a niche in the Pune region. Slowly, we started gaining more and more customers in boiler makers. A few years down the line, Hitachi was scouting for an Indian supplier, and they happened to stumble upon our shop. And they took a chance on us. They were in the search of an Indian vendor to develop an Indian vendor, and that's how they chose Enpro. They took a chance. They placed an order for certain lube oil systems, and that was our entry into the international market. And this soon became our major product. So Hitachi taught us a lot. We got an exposure to international quality standards, the international way of how things work in a manufacturing company, in an engineering company. And we had a few of our employees travel to Japan to learn how the techniques are in engineering. And that's how we started growing. After Hitachi, which was the first success in an international setting, we gained more and more customers from Europe, from America, the likes of GE, the likes of Siemens, etc. And soon, more and more pump manufacturers, turbine manufacturers became our customers. Our brand grew internationally. We started getting more and more orders. We had to expand, of course. So we set up more and more shops. We rented out more and more facilities. And over the years, we realized that working out of multiple different facilities was not anymore feasible. We shifted our manufacturing to a place called Markal, which is in the outskirts of Pune, where we consolidated all our manufacturing. And this is where we are currently as well for our major manufacturing facilities over there. And similarly, we consolidated all our office spaces, which also multiplied over the years, into one central location in Pimpri. We have also now have a manufacturing setup in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for our international customer in Saudi Aramco. So this is how Enpro basically grew over the years. We've carved out a niche for ourselves where we are basically the global leader in mechanical fluid systems right now. We excel in customization, and that is where we find our strengths rather than in mass manufacturing. And basically, we grew from scratch. We found a niche. We grew gradually. We never took big jumps, but we grew in a very sustainable and step-by-step manner.
Thank you, Anuj. I always get super excited when I hear such stories, and truly what an inspirational story that was. And thank you, Anuj, for sharing this. And while I was hearing to this story, one thing that I was curious about to know, and that's what I want to ask you next. What has been the role of technology in the growth of Enpro, right? Like you started from the garage and then grew up to whatever you spoke about, and how have you been expanding and also working with an international player like Hitachi, right? What was the role of tech and what kind of a role it played in helping you constantly innovate and differentiate as such?
Right. So Enpro is not in the cutting edge of technologies or the industries. So we are not in industries like artificial intelligence or 3D printing or the likes. We are more in the oil and gas sector. And as you know, oil and gas, things move a bit slowly. The digitization is a bit slow. It catches up later compared to other industries. So also we are a project-based company. We are not a mass manufacturer. Usually in mass manufactured companies, the technologies are adopted way faster than in project-based companies. So how do we exactly differentiate ourselves with the use of technology? Because technology comes in a bit slow in our industry. The likes of IoT or Industry 4.0 also quite difficult to implement in an industry like ours, which is a project-based industry, where there are no mass manufacturing lines. There are no industrial lines where each second counts, etc. We are a project-based company. So how do we differentiate ourselves? So what we realized was standardizing in our kind of industry in terms of products is very difficult. But we realized what we can standardize is our processes or the way we work, basically. So we need to select software or workflows which are geared towards our processes and not our products per se. So that is how we started utilizing more and more technology. Now, by processes, to give you an example, about 20 years back, we shifted our drawings from the drawing board to AutoCAD, which is a 2D software. And back then, it felt like a big leap. We started saving a lot of time. Things were so much more convenient. But then about 10 years, 12 years back, we shifted to a 3D software, which became much more convenient compared to a 2D software like AutoCAD. So that is how we took steps. The more and more we were exposed to different software, we realized how the importance of these software is in terms of the efficiency improvements which we get, in terms of what kind of repetitive tasks can we automate, what are the manual tasks which we can eliminate using software. So all these added to our efficiencies. And finally, the amount of information which comes through these softwares or through this technology is quite enormous and very, very important to make decisions in the future. So that is how we realized that marrying with technology is key in differentiating ourselves with our competitors. Because this is slow-moving industry in terms of technology, we need to adopt these technologies first to gain an advantage over our competitors. So that's how our journey towards technology and our approach towards technology was. And more recently, we'll be going ahead with more and more, with more cloud infrastructure coming in, etc. also.
Yeah, thank you, Anuj. And you mentioned that the pace of transformation or tech is is slightly lower in the parts of your industries, but I'm sure Enpro was nowhere slow looking at what you've achieved, right? And taking a cue from there, right, on the tech piece of it. I know that Enpro embarked on a digital transformation journey where you did the migration of SAP S/4HANA on Google Cloud platform. Can you tell us what were the pressing reasons on why you undertook this project, and what were your expectations in terms of outcomes or the goals that you had set for yourself as success metrics before embarking on this journey?
Right. So I joined the business about 5 years back, and so I was more of a third-party observer in those initial days. I was observing how things are happening within the company right now. I had also worked in other industries before joining Enpro, and I observed that things had been happening in a certain way over the years, and some of the things, there were some roadblocks in adopting newer technologies, etc., which I found some gaps over there. And we basically identified few areas where we could implement new software to achieve more and more efficiency. And ERP was one of the biggest hurdles currently in the company. So back then, about 15 years ago, we had adopted a custom ERP made by a local vendor based out of Pune. Now, of course, the ERP was very customized to our business. It had a lot of advantages because it was built for our kind of workflows, for our kind of processes. But however, over a few years after implementation of that ERP, the vendor decided to quit the ERP business altogether. And that was a big shock for us because we were expecting this ERP to serve us for the long term. So what the vendor basically provided us for the last 5 or 6 years was just a support system. We never added new features, or we weren't up to date with the new norms in business, etc. So the ERP, changing the ERP and migrating to a more robust, a more longer life ERP was the need of the hour. Also, as you know, hello? Yeah. Sorry, I lost connection. So scalability was another important aspect which we were considering. Our old ERP was a server-based ERP. It was based on a very old platform, and we were growing fast. We were recruiting more and more people. We were expanding in new countries, new geographies, and scaling this ERP was becoming a big challenge. And of course, with COVID and working from home, the kind of flexibility you need nowadays was not possible with our old ERP system. So this is why changing our ERP and migrating to a new, flexible, robust, modern ERP was the need of the hour. And that is how we started evaluating different kinds of ERPs, different software. Of course, SAP was one of them. We also evaluated others like more modern cloud-based ERP systems, browser-based ERP systems. We spent a lot of time in evaluating these systems. Of course, each had its advantages, each had its disadvantages. Finally, we narrowed down on SAP. SAP is the global leader, of course, in ERP. And the kind of customization we required for our kind of business, which is a very niche business, a project-oriented business, this kind of customization we didn't find in any other ERP, but SAP did, provide such kind of customization, such kind of scalability, and the vision which SAP has in growing ahead, having a cloud-first approach going ahead was quite essential in making the decision. So that's how we chose SAP. It might not be the most modern of the software in terms of being agile, but the vast amount of customization it offers and the vision they have for the future is what convinces us. Now, the other question was, how do we approach the implementation of SAP? Do we have it on the on-premise servers of our company, or do we have it hosted over the cloud? And I think that was a no-brainer because COVID was just on the rise and working from home was becoming the new norm. And we had already started migrating a lot of our systems to the cloud, like our email server, like our CAD design software, etc. And of course, ERP was also going to be on the cloud. And that is how we chose cloud as a platform to host our ERP system. Again, the scalability which the cloud offers, the kind of data security which it offers, the convenience of managing things, the software over the cloud is just extremely convenient. Other than that, I think we are approaching in a situation where we want to move completely away from our servers on premises. We are shifting everything to the cloud to achieve that kind of flexibility. So having the ERP on the cloud was also the key decision which we took while implementing the ERP.
Thank you, Anuj. And now that you have successfully migrated and on the path to completely transform the organization, can you just share with us some of the key outcomes that you have seen in the recent past? It can be around agility, productivity, user experience, or any other metrics that you had set for yourself. What has been the outcome so far?
Right. We went live about 2 months back, so it is still work in progress. I would say it is just the beginning of the implementation. That being said, we see a lot of things, a lot of advantages of having shifted to the cloud on SAP. Earlier in our earlier ERP, the finance module and the material MRP system wasn't working well together. Now everything is quite seamless. All the information flows easily from one module to the other. Everything is unified into one consolidated system, I would say. So there's no data discrepancy. Everything is consistent across the system. So that is a major advantage which we have. Secondly is, of course, the flexibility it offers. We are right now working from home, and we see absolutely zero disruption in our processes in the way we work. Within a matter of a day, we could shift the entire office to working from home instantly. That is absolutely just because of having hosted it on the cloud. So anyone with an internet connection can access our SAP system. It is quite secure as well. So we have proper roles and responsibilities managed within SAP, which also adds to a lot of security and data security in the system also. We are seeing a lot of transparency in the system in terms of monitoring different processes, monitoring the progress of projects, etc., which wasn't feasible in our earlier ERP system. So we are seeing a lot of advantages, and like I mentioned, it's just the beginning. We are seeing a lot of data being captured in this system, and in the coming stages going ahead, we are going to utilize this data in a data analytics platform going ahead, and we'll see a lot more advantages to leverage through this SAP system.
Thank you, Anuj, and kudos to your leadership, because I can look at the results and the outcomes that you spoke about, and these are definitely benchmarks that peers in the industry can leverage while planning similar transformations. Another thing that amazes me is how you embarked on a cloud-first digital transformation journey. You spoke about how did you choose Google Cloud to be the right fit for you. Can you talk to us about some of the reasons why you chose Google Cloud, and also our partner InfraBeat, who has helped you to ease this transformation journey for you and make it successful. Can you just throw some light around this topic as such?
Right. So going to cloud was chosen, of course, but then you have different cloud platforms which you can choose from to host SAP. So we did consider all the major ones like Azure, Google Cloud, Amazon, web services, etc. But the amount of support, I think, which GCP offered us was tremendous. And I think the partnership which InfraBeat has with GCP, the kind of seamless integration which was possible using GCP, was very, very convenient. We found it quite cost competitive as well. And I think the vision which GCP has, especially for the Indian context, and the way they're approaching the market is quite commendable. And it just offers a much more convenient platform to deploy the system. And of course, looking at the future as well, the kind of scalability it offers, and also the platforms which it offers for data analytics, for example, which we have in mind for the future. There are a lot of opportunities to leverage these kind of platforms like data analytics, artificial intelligence, to analyze our data, to take more informed decisions in the future. I think GCP is in a position, in the leading position in terms of AI, data analytics, etc. So I think this was another factor which helped us decide which platform to go on, and I think GCP won hands down in this aspect.
Thank you, Anuj. Always pleasing to hear that on how Google Cloud is being, putting the customer at the core of what we are doing, and the future that we are planning for. And of course, we will shortly hear from Infrabeat on more of this project and how did it entire pan out as such. And I'm so tempted, to keep continuing this conversation and learning more of this fascinating story of Enpro. But in the interest of time, I would like to ask you my final question for this conversation as such. Anuj, what is in store? What next? How do you plan to go ahead from here to build on all the amazing tech fundamentals and foundation that you have built and be future ready? And what all we love to call nowadays, being ready for the new normal. So what next, Anuj, from here?
All right. So like I mentioned, it's just the beginning. ERP was one of the avenues of going digital, and we are looking at many other things also. We recently shifted our complete HR system to the cloud as well, leveraging another cloud-based platform to host all our HR services. We have a vision to go completely paperless for all our processes, transactions, everything. Also from an environment point of view, and also from a flexibility and convenience point of view of working from anywhere you want, basically. So implementing SAP was just the first step. Now there will be multiple phases going ahead in this implementation of SAP and other software as well. So digitization is, probably the biggest project which we have in the coming 2-3 years. Like I mentioned, we want to establish a big data analytics platform within the company to take more informed decisions. Like, in engineering companies, in project-based companies, a lot of decisions are, taken by the gut feel of a very few people. People have a certain mindset over the years that, oh, this is the right decision to make. And it is very rarely backed by data. And as going ahead, as we scale the industry, as we scale our business going ahead, data will play a very, very important role. And making decisions based on data will be extremely crucial. And we want to move away from a person-dependent approach to a system and data-driven approach. And this is where digitization will play a big key. Having a platform over platforms like GCP or data analytics platform will be extremely crucial to the success of the organization in the future. So that is where we are heading, gathering more data through the system, trying to digitize as much as possible, and taking more informed decisions using this data is going to be key.
Thank you, Anuj. And I wish to have one more conversation in the very near future on how are you leveraging Google Cloud for your data analytics needs. And I think it's a very ambitious goal that you have, and truly said, right, that data is what they say, the new oil, and I think a great journey to embark on. And again, glad to know that Google Cloud and Infrabeat have been a great partner for you in enabling this transformation. With this, I would just wanted to request if can we, Team DNB, can we put up the plaque on the screen, please? Just a quick thank you from our side, Anuj. As this comes up, we would like to once again welcome you to the Google Cloud and Infrabeat family. This is a small token of appreciation for your continued partnership, and what we would like to call you being the digital transformation champion at Enpro. Thank you so much, Anuj. Great having this conversation. Great having you on board. And with this, I would like to hand it over back to Fraser for taking ahead the session with our next speaker. Thank you so much once again.
Thanks a lot, Venugopal. Thanks for having me. Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venu. It is a privilege to share the virtual days with such esteemed guests. Thank you for those amazing insights, gentlemen. I'm sure the session was truly inspiring for a lot of our attendees present here today. And now, let's welcome our next speaker for the session, Mr. Nikhil Kansore, Senior Cloud Solutions Architect, Infrabeat Technologies Private Limited. Welcome, Mr. Kansore, and over to you.
Yes, hi, Fraser. Good morning. This is Nikhil this side. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. I'm sharing my screen. Please let me know once it is visible. Yep. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Please go ahead.
Sure. Yes. Hello, everyone. This is Nikhil this side. I work as a senior cloud solutions architect at Infrabeat, and I've had the privilege of closely working with the Enpro team during this entire phase of evaluation of different cloud platforms, ERPs, and also during the implementation phase. And that's where it was indeed a privilege to interact with people uh, who understood the processes well, who understood the technology well, and they were able to correlate their business needs with with the technology needs, and that's where we were able to kind of bridge the overall gap, and provide Enpro with solutions that were viable for their long-term goals. So typically nowadays we've been hearing a lot about this Industry 4.0 buzz, wherein the entire buzz is around organizations want to adopt the modern platforms and cloud services, and they want to leverage a transition in which the traditional operations, which were more or less manual, could be automated or could be optimized in certain areas, or there could be some developments, and all of this could be is something that can be achieved using different areas of technology. So this is where the actual industrial operation join hands with technology to craft something that can benefit the long term goals of the industry. And definitely digital transformation in the true sense would be where this technology can be leveraged to solve certain areas or solve certain problems in certain areas of business, and certain real world operational problems could be solved in order to achieve something that is in line with the long term goals of the organization. And this is where a modern cloud platform like GCP today would come in place, and it would help you to visualize something that is beyond infrastructure. So infrastructure today is offered by various players, but the story which is beyond infrastructure, what you can do further by leveraging this infrastructure, is where GCP plays in a key differentiator. So here we can see a real world example of how different Google Cloud APIs can be consumed by just a few simple configurations, and they can be seamlessly integrated with your various applications to provide better insights and improve operations using all this data which is provided. Now, one of the key challenge in any typical ML platform would be to train your models, because every industry is different, and training the models requires long term extensive data. And that's where an API service like Google is something that can add to the benefits of that, because you don't have to worry about training these models. All of this thing in the backend is done, and you're just a consumer of your application, and it simplifies the overall transformation journey. So this is where I think this is something that can be leveraged in the overall digital transformation journeys of any typical organization. Now, if we compare, or if we analyze the role of information technology or IT compared to what was in the past and what it is today. In the erstwhile days, IT was more of a business supporter, wherein the day-to-day operations and infrastructure management and end user hardware, end user software, all of these were the key roles in which IT played an important part in any company. But nowadays it's more of a business enabler, and in the future it is being visualized as a vital business function, because whatever is the long term strategy of any organization, IT would definitely play a critical role in that, because they would have to decide on various things like choosing the right modern infrastructure platform, designing enterprise architectures that can align with the business growth, with the future, then use of various APIs and cloud native services that can deliver quick turnarounds for various integrations. And definitely security has been something that has been a key concern in the past couple of years, since everyone started working from home. We saw in certain typical organizations there were data breaches that were increased, and that's where it is kind of very important to have your data stored on a platform which is secure in nature, and something that aligns with all the industry best practices. And along with this, it is also essential to have a very good end user experience, because at any point of time your end users or your business users are going to be the actual consumers of your application. And if they are going to have a bad application performance, or if they are going to face any issues in the overall operability of that, then it's going to create a very bad picture of the overall adoption strategy. So this is where I think the IT has to play a very critical role, and most of these functions are today eased out, or these responsibilities are offloaded from the for the IT team if they are going with a managed cloud option like GCP. So when you're hosting your mission critical applications on premises, or in options like co-locations, or certain kinds of private cloud scenarios, so there are a lot of things which a customer has to manage on their own. So that includes from the basics like the actual physical infrastructure, the power, cooling, the operating system, licenses, hypervisors, and the actual motive of that company or the actual motive of the organization is to use applications. They want to use applications to get better insights, to get more visibility into their data, and to actually lead to some business benefits. But all of these overheads which are caused in the traditional infrastructure management is something that kind of stops these companies from achieving their real business goals. And that's where again a platform like Google can help you by offloading all of these responsibilities of managing that entire infrastructure. And as a company, you're just a consumer of your application, and you can customize that further to your business needs. So talking about what Enpro's journey has been with GCP. So this was one project which was started during the pandemic. The project was commissioned when COVID was at its peak, and we went live recently 2 months back again when the pandemic was still going on. So during this phase nowadays, as everyone is aware, hardware procurement has become a big challenge. Even getting laptops and hard drives is something that has become very difficult. So getting server infrastructure is again a very big problem. So that was one of the key concerns. Then again, the overall challenge which is around hosting or managing that infrastructure, maintenance, and from an accessibility perspective, there are different areas or different locations from which these SAP applications which are hosted today on GCP are accessed. So this involves various locations in India as well as the global locations of Enpro. There are users accessing these sites securely from the Middle East, and it was also very important to have a good backup and business continuity setup for this landscape, because for any manufacturing company or for any enterprise for that matter, the KPI would be the system uptime, system performance, and end user experience. So these were the three critical factors, and that's where again a platform like GCP helped them to adopt or overcome these challenges with a complete approach of cloud native technologies. The infrastructure was sized according to the current requirement, but was designed in such a way that depending on the future growth or adoption of newer services, implementation of newer modules, newer technologies, the platform could be seamlessly scaled up without any challenges around without any physical restrictions, I mean. So, and that's what something that led to an overall improvement in the end user experience, as what Mr. Anuj mentioned in his keynote a while back. And that's all about how Enpro started their journey on GCP. So in any typical project, the phase one is to move on cloud, but that's not something that we can truly regard as a digital transformation, because the first phase or the first picture of it was the infrastructure, but now it is also to think beyond the infrastructure. So that's where Enpro has now initiated on the second journey, which is around the application and infrastructure modernization. So this involves certain typical legacy applications which were hosted back on premise. So certain applications are being re-architected, or certain applications are being re-platformed. Modern platforms are being evaluated, cloud-based services are being evaluated. So overall, whatever was running in a traditional data center stack is now being discussed to move that on different cloud platforms. And that's where the second phase of this digital transformation would be initiated. Similarly, there's also a good roadmap for different analytics tools. So as Mr. Anuj again rightly mentioned in his PPT a while back, a lot of decision making today happens on gut feeling, and there is not much of a data which is available to correlate or to support these things. So that's where again, since they are on a modern platform like HANA and various different cloud services are being consumed, it is essential to have a data warehouse in which all of this data can be brought in together and can be visualized using dashboards, and that is something that can definitely help the business takes decision better and faster. So that is something that is planned as a second roadmap. And what I understand is a lot of discussions and planning and architecture along this has already started. So soon we would have the second phase also going live on this. Then in the next couple of slides, I would like to highlight a few GCP differentiators which has helped Enpro run these applications better. So as we know, one of the key component in any while running any mission critical application is the uptime of the application. And usually in order to achieve higher uptimes, people usually go in setups like building additional redundancies, configuring high availabilities. So you don't really need to do that when you're running your servers on a platform like Google Cloud, because Google offers you something called as live migration. So even though the servers are today running on cloud, for the truth of everyone knows that in the backend it's going to run on physical servers, and servers being servers, they require patching, they require maintenance. But Google has developed certain platforms in which these kind of activities or maintenance or these unplanned failures, they don't really lead to any downtime. So we have a tool called live migration, in which these applications which are running on servers, they can just be seamlessly migrated from one server to another server prior to any maintenance activities. And that helps us to keep your landscape always with the latest patches and always with the latest security related things. And there is no additional configuration that a customer has to do. It is just a matter of selecting one drop down menu in the console, which you can see in the image below, and selecting that option just enables this feature. It is built into the platform, available at no additional cost. Similarly, having a strong secure backbone is very important, because today the way we are working, or the culture how it is going on, it's a work from home or work from anywhere kind of a scenario, and there has to be a secure access being enabled from any device. So maybe the consumers of this application could be sitting in a factory, could be on the shop floor, or they could be accessing these systems from their mobile phones. So it is very essential to have a communication which is, first of all, very secure, and secondly, something that is very low latency, because you cannot add in security and compromise on the performance, because end user performance is again important. So Google, with its capabilities of a strong secure backbone, the network is encrypted by default, and Google being an ISP itself, so the only place at which your data would be actually going on the public internet would be from your end user devices to the nearest point of presence of Google Cloud. Once your data reaches any of the Google Cloud point of presence, after that everything is routed on the Google network itself. So this protects you from different scenarios like man in the middle attacks, or any kind of security breach that could happen. So similarly, one of the key aspects of cloud deployments today is whether you're running your servers or whether you're running on your applications on the latest platform or not. So the rate at which the technology is changing nowadays, it's much more faster than compared to what it was a couple of years back. A few years back, Intel used to come up with processors probably once in 2 years, once in 3 years, but nowadays there have been new generations coming in very quick, and the performance benefits that these new technologies offer is also something that is very fast. So that's where, again, a platform like GCP would allow you to always go with the latest infrastructure platform. And again, it is as seamless as selecting a specific drop down in your server settings. So you can select what kind of technology or what kind of processor your applications would run in the backend, and you can always switch to the newer platforms in which you can achieve better performance in the same amount of hardware which you were running earlier. And this is where you can achieve a high compute performance at a lower cost than what you would be getting in the predecessor. So these are a few GCP differentiators which allow you to run your mission critical applications like SAP better. And that's where, again, companies like Infrabeat would help you better on this journey. So we would always like to hear this from the customers. We want to understand your challenges, what you're currently facing in your infrastructure, in your applications, in your ERP applications, and that's where we can play an advisory role to you, and we can help you evaluate the right kind of products in order to achieve better on your overall digital transformation journey. Yes, that's about it from my side, and we are open for questions. So please have your questions posted, and we shall be answering them one by one. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kanzode. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take your questions in our Q&A section. We already have a couple of them come in. If you've not shared your questions yet, we encourage you to share them in the Q&A section at the right-hand side of your screen. Right, we're going to take the first question straight away without further ado. This one's for you, Anuj.
Yep.
The question is, can you share key aspects which you had considered while selecting GCP?
Key aspects for the platform, I think the support which the team offered, the scalability and the customization which is possible. And thirdly, like I mentioned, was the add-ons which we can have in the future for this platform. Like the data analytics platform, the machine learning aspects, etc. So I think these three were the key aspects which we considered while choosing this. And of course, the kind of uptime, etc. But I think those are quite uniform across most of the platforms. But these three were the key differentiators which helped us choose GCP.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is for Nikhil. And the question is, migrating ERP on cloud is always risky. What should be kept in mind when evaluating such projects?
Right. I think when the discussion is around migrating mission critical applications like ERP, the discussion should be more about how the overall infrastructure stack can be supported to run better on this cloud platform. So things like how the cloud provider manages updating the infrastructure well, how are the software upgrades being managed, what are the kinds of redundancies made available, and how the overall infrastructure can be well supported with a platform that is kind of available across different locations and can be consumed securely. But it should not only be limited to infrastructure. There should be a thought process that should be beyond infrastructure, which is about what are the different services that are made available to the which are made available by the cloud platform, and how it can help in the long-term goals of the organization.
Okay. We have one more question for you, Nikhil. Anuj mentioned that GCP is cost effective. Could you tell us how is this enabled?
Right. So we have different kinds of purchase models which are available. So there is something called as on-demand or pay-as-you-go, which is available in different platforms as well. So there are certain ways in which the overall cost of an infrastructure can be limited, can be reduced by utilizing these technologies. So like, let's say as an example, if the dev and QAS workloads or the non-production workloads, which you don't really require to run 24/7. So you could automate these workloads to start at a specific point of time and stop at a specific point of time. And you can extend this in the form of mobile applications to your end users, in which, let's say at any point of time, they would need access to the systems. They can just go to that mobile app and they can start it. Or whatever your components are, something that are running 24/7. So there are options available called as committed usage discounts, or CUDs as we call it in GCP. So you can commit a certain amount of infrastructure, which is like a certain amount of servers, for a period of 1 year or 3 years, and then you can get the corresponding discounts accordingly. So that's how we adopted a mixed mode strategy. We went with on-demand scenarios for our UAT environments and reserved scenarios for our production environments, and we were able to optimize the overall cost.
Okay. We have yet another one for you, Nikhil. This question says, how much time does it usually take to migrate a on-prem SAP to cloud?
Right. So migration is like when we say migration, there are different types of migrating. There are different types or different ways in which you can migrate an SAP landscape to cloud. Like in Enpro's case, it was more of a greenfield implementation in which the servers were set up, the application and database components were installed, and on top of that, all the customizations took place. So such kind of projects are kind of long-term projects because there is a good amount of business involvement, end user involvement, which is there in these kind of projects. But there are certain projects in which there are lift and shift migrations or just pure technical migrations in which the overall business involvement is pretty less. So we have another success story on GCP for another customer called Rustam Ji. It's a public case study in which we migrated a customer which was running their SAP applications on Oracle database and Windows platform on premises. We migrated them to HANA platform on Google Cloud platform, and this entire migration from sandbox to production was done in a period of 9 days. So that's one of the fastest migration that has happened, and it's captured in a public case study in which a HANA workload on premises was migrated to GCP.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Just let me check if we've got any more. Okay, I think that was the last question which we had. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they say all good things must come to an end, and so in likewise fashion, today's virtual session. First of all, let me thank our esteemed speakers who shared their valuable inputs and truly gave return on investment for the time spent by our attendees on this virtual conference. Truly valuable takeaways from this session. Today's session wouldn't have been a success without the active participation of all our esteemed speakers and audiences. I would like to thank each one of you once again for taking time out and being a part of this virtual conference today. A very special thanks to our partners, Google Cloud and InfraBeat, for their support to this initiative, without whom this conference wouldn't have been possible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can only end by saying thank you once again for coming and attending this session. And since we were on the topic of clouds, I'd like to end by saying keep your feet on the ground and reach for the clouds. Thank you once again. Take care, everyone, and stay safe.